Hi, I have been doing a few videos on gluten and dairy intolerance and vasculitis, and I thought I would do, since I have more chronic illnesses than that, I have heart disease, IBS, lymphedema, and etc. So I thought I would kind of put a timeline of these events and how it happened to me. Hi, I'm Sue de Blasio, and welcome to Through Sue's Eyes. This will kind of be tough for me because it goes back to when I was in my 20s. Not a pleasant time because I got hit with a few things, but I'm thinking that during those times I was really felt alone. And even though there were tons of people around me, I felt really alone. And I'm hoping that this might help someone realize or help them in knowing that they're not alone and that what happened to me, I know has happened to a lot of people, and to speak up because I didn't in a lot of situations. When I was young, my mother passed away when I was 8. I'm not sure if that had anything to do with the fact that off and on I would get a fast heart rate and then it would go away. And I didn't say anything. It scared me, but I didn't think about it as much. I was a teen. I also had a problem in junior high I started having episodes where I couldn't make it to the toilet, which was embarrassing. Thank God I lived near the school because I could run home and change. But it did happen in places that I had no way out. And I know people knew what had happened with me, but I didn't say anything. And I never said anything to my parents, although they suspected, I'm sure, that, I was having episodes of diarrhea and I just had not made it to the toilet. Until a man down the street that I babysat for him and his wife's children, I had an episode when I was babysitting. And when he walked me home, of course, this is awful, but the distinctive smell. And he mentioned it to my father. And my father and mother took me to the doctor. And at that time is when I told them everything. And the doctor decided that what my problem was is I couldn't digest chocolate well. Because I had carnation in breakfast, I shouldn't say that, every morning. And lots of times right after that it would happen, or sometime during the day. Once I stopped the chocolate, I was fine for a long time. And then years went by, and then I started eating chocolate again, and I was okay. So that was really, the beginning of IBS off and on during my life. Also, when I was 21, I was married, and in the second year of my marriage, my husband's cancer came back, stage 4. I was 21. At that time I was 22. I didn't know what I was doing. I was beside myself. I didn't know how to really handle the whole situation, even though my mother had passed from cancer. So one night I woke up in the middle of the night and my heart was racing and it wouldn't stop. And I went to the doctor, and eventually what they said was I had tachycardia, which would not kill me, but it needed to be controlled. And I went on medication and it did help. But they took their time about putting me on it. And so that led to depression. And all that was going on with my husband, with the cancer and the treatments. It was just a lot. And outside of developing the tachycardia, I also developed a deep depression and phobias. The depression and anxiety, all I can say is I'm sure a lot of you have been there. And the depression was like being in a dark black hole, and I would be able to see the light above, and I wanted to get there because I wanted to feel good. I wanted to be better. But I tried crawling my way out, and it took me a long time to do it. But I did do it, and that kind of depression never came back to me again. I did develop phobias. I became acrophobic. I developed OCD. I had a lot of fears, claustrophobic, and I had never had any of these before. I was very outgoing. So I had to work through those also. When my husband passed, I was 24 and he was 29. And I still had the depression, the phobias, the whole 9 yards. The tachycardia would come back off and on. It literally took me, and I'm sure many of you have been through this, it literally took everything I had to get out of bed every single morning to go to work. I had to work. I needed the money. My parents would help, but I was determined for some reason to make it on my own. And the depression and the grief and everything else together was a lot. And it was a good year before, I could wake up and say, okay, I'm ready for the day. Because I was not ready for a long, long time. I was not, no matter what. But I worked my way through it. My friends helped me. I would go to the grocery store and I'd be a nervous wreck. I'd play with my earring while I was standing in line at the grocery store, hoping I wouldn't pass out. I mean, these phobias I had never experienced before, but they all went away. Thank God. They all went away as I started to heal. That was a big chunk of it was only a span of 3 years, but it had such an impact on me, and it was really difficult. And anybody who has gone through that or has been married longer than I was, I feel for them, and it's a hard road to travel. But after that, I did go to see my parents in Virginia. I would visit them, and one time I went, it was my late 20s. I had my suitcase, and I was in one of the stores, magazine stores in the airport or whatever, and I leaned my suitcase against my leg, and it hurt like anything. I couldn't even believe it. So when I got to my parents' house, I told my dad, and they took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, this isn't good because it's on your bone. When you get home, go to your doctor. And I did. And they did a biopsy. I'm cutting out a lot of stuff here, but I wanted to get to it. They did a biopsy. And the surgeon said it was like a gunshot wound. It was like an infection wrapped around my bone. And they took it out, and they were going to test it because my doctor felt I had what they called mixed connective tissue disease. And this might have been part of it. We'll never know because they lost the biopsy. So that was something that I struggled with, because to actually diagnose mixed connective tissue is very hard. It's like eliminating everything else. And now, of course, it's autoimmune, and the same deal. It's very hard to diagnose. So that was the beginning of my journey to find out about the mixed connective tissue disease, which would plague me off and on for years, as did my IBS. So at this point, I'm going to stop, and I will have another chapter further about my autoimmune, IBS, and eventually, and of course, my tachycardia and anxiety, but that always played in there somewhere. But for now, I'll stop, and I hope you join me for the next chapter. And I hope that anyone that has gone through any of this, it helps them. I did survive a lot of things during my early 20s and even in my teen years. And as hard as it was, and as alone as I felt, or as embarrassed when I had the problem with not making it to the toilet with the IBS, I did always keep my sense of humor. My sense of humor got me through everything. And so did my support system. But I always maintain that if you have a good sense of humor, and if you can laugh at yourself, it's half the battle. So I'll see you next time. Take care.